us right now Dr. Raywat Deonandan, an epidemiologist and science communicator at the University of Ottawa. Welcome back.
Thank you.
A somber anniversary, isn't it?
It really is, and it's hard to believe it's been a year already. It feels like it's still last year in many ways. We're still deep in it. But, it's the end is in sight. So I don't think we'll be having this dire feeling, this somber mood this time next year.
Hopefully not. The good news today is that Ontario is reporting fewer than 2,000 new COVID-19 cases. We are seeing a decline in cases in Ontario, and numbers are also following in Quebec, going down. Can we call this a trend yet?
I think we can, actually. I think the lockdown, if you want to call it that, is working around the country, as they always do, despite what people might say. They do work. So in Ontario, I think the reproduction number is about 0.85. In Ottawa, it's a little below 1. So all signs point to a diminishing of transmission. It's not out of the woods at all, by no accounts, but certainly it looks like we're on the right path.
Let's look at what's happening in Ottawa today. I want to get your sense of the numbers locally. How would you characterize our local situation in Ottawa?
We are stable. So as I mentioned, the reproduction number is about 1, maybe a little less than 1. The test positivity rate, I think, is 3%, which is kind of what it was back in the fall, if I'm not wrong, and that's a manageable number to have. The number of contacts, the average number of contacts per case is just about over 1, which is a sign that the lockdowns are having an effect. And our ICUs are not full. So these are all good signs. It means we can probably weather the storm if things keep going the way they're going. However, the great confounder is, of course, the new variants. And if they become dominant, then we have to reconsider all our options. And the wastewater, of course, is also showing that transmission is diminishing.
So given the fact that the variant is in Barrie, that long-term care home has essentially become ground zero, it's moved into Kingston as well. People are very concerned about the variant. How much does that wreak havoc on the stable numbers that we're starting to see?
It really does. So the new variant, we think, increases transmission by 50% or 56% or so. That means the reproduction number is going to go up a bit. That means it gets harder to keep the transmission down. Lockdown measures will still work. Distancing will still work. Mask wearing will still work. But there isn't the same amount of space for lack of compliance. So long as people do what they're supposed to do, I think we'll be fine. But the stakes get higher and the margin of error gets smaller.
But Ontario can't really speed up the vaccinations, given the fact that we don't have supply coming in from Pfizer this week. They're actually prioritizing getting the doses out to residents of long-term care. What did you think of that pivot?
I think it's important to get it to residents of long-term care. In fact, I would have said that should have been the primary target from day one. We had more than 200,000 doses in December, and we have 78,000 long-term care residents. We should have gotten them first. But given the threat of the new variant, then it makes total sense to harden the places where our most vulnerable live and try to weather the storm. Now, in absence of new supply, we have to diminish transmission as long and as hard as we can. Hence the need to maintain restrictions a little bit longer.
So we've got the threat of the new variant, and it is in Ontario, and it has moved into that long-term care home, and it has killed so many people there. We've got that, and then we've got small amounts of vaccinations, a really slow trickle of vaccinations coming in for now. What's your outlook in the next 14 days?
14 days. I'm a stupid optimist. I think we can do it. All it takes is for people, again, to behave themselves and to do what we've been doing so well, especially in Ottawa, keep our distance and stay at home, and just wait it out until the vaccines arrive. Now, because the long-term care residents have mostly been vaccinated, and I think Ontario is at 60% last time I checked, the impact on the death rate will not be as dire as it would have been a month ago. And if we get that to 100%, it comes down significantly. And the hospitalization rate as well should come down. But much of the hospitalizations across Canada aren't in the elderly anymore. They're actually in working age people. So that group has not been vaccinated yet. So there is a fair amount of vulnerability still out there. My outlook for the next 2 weeks is that we're going to be okay because I see people, especially in Ottawa, doing all the right things. And I think this city in particular is better prepared than the rest of the province.
So another 2 weeks of the stay-at-home order and extension of the state of emergency. Not a huge surprise on that. But do you think it'll need to go beyond that?
There's no way to tell. I think we'll start lifting a couple of things in a couple of weeks. What those things are, I can't say. Maybe opening up a few businesses, I'm not sure. It depends entirely on how we see the new variant moving across the province. If it's still contained in certain parts, then we can probably start thinking about some options, especially if we have new vaccine shipments confirmed and the province is ready to go with mass vaccination. There's too many variables right now to determine what's going to happen. The good news, of course, is that we know that the vaccines do work on the new variant, so there's some good news there.
Yeah, Moderna said its vaccine appears to protect against the variants from the UK and South Africa. So that is good news. Meantime, we also had some local good news. A company that was in the headlines quite a bit, Spartan Bioscience, and then disappeared because it had to recall and resubmit its product last year. Now its rapid testing device has been approved by Health Canada. How significant is that rapid test in your view?
Well, it's significant for a number of reasons. One, rapid testing is important, and we should have been using it for a long time, if not this product, then other products that have been vetted by other governments around the world. They don't have to be perfect. They just have to be good enough, depending upon the kind of strategy you use them with. And it's also significant because this is locally made, so in theory, we should have priority access to them, right? So now it comes down to how we're going to use them as entry point for long-term care centers, as regular surveillance screeners for schools, or as screening tools for airports. All of these things are on the table, maybe even screening tools for the general population. It opens up a whole new avenue of exploration for how we control this epidemic. It doesn't have to be retreat to the lockdown all the time now. We now have this powerful tool, depending upon if we have the will to use it and the intelligence to use it strategically.
So during a technical briefing today, the provincial health officials were saying every long-term care resident in the province will get at least one of the shots of COVID-19 for the vaccine by February 5th or sooner. That's good to hear. People in Ottawa in particular want to know, when are my kids able to go back to school? And last Friday, Dr. Vera Etches, our medical officer of health, said she was ready to help support students going back on Monday, meaning today. Then, after she said that, not long after, the province said, actually, no, Ottawa is not going back to school yet. The students in Ottawa, in some of the surrounding health regions, they're back, but not here. When do you think that the kids could locally safely go back to the classroom?
Honestly, I don't see it happening until March at the earliest. That could be wrong. There's so many unknowns when it comes to school openings, and you will find that the so-called experts were all divided down the middle on this, depending on how you look at the data. Some will say that there's no transmission happening in schools, some will say it's no different from everybody else, and some will say they're accelerators. The problem is the data is incomplete and it's difficult to interpret it. For example, we don't find a lot of children spreading it to their parents, but we're looking in strange ways. For example, if a kid is asymptomatic in a school, he probably won't get tested, and so he's not detected. If he gives it to his parent, the parent is symptomatic, will get tested, and is detected, and now suddenly we do a saturation test of his household, find the child, and assume the child got it from the parent, and the child is never identified as the index case. That's an example of the epidemiological biases at play here. It really confounds and complicates how we look at the data. So as a result, it's really hard to know what the right thing to do here. I don't see schools opening anytime soon because of the factors we talked about already. The uncertainties, the threat of the new variant, and the fact that vaccination is still slow. So if the province is acting using the precautionary principle, I think they'll probably delay it longer. But who knows? I've been wrong before.
Dr. Raywat Deonandan, great to get your perspective on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.